Hi, my name is Karthik from Design School by Wpalgoridm.com, and in this tutorial, I'll teach you the basics of Bricks Builder. We'll do so by building this fun homepage from the scratch using Bricks Builder. Let's get started. Unlike Elementor, Bricks offers lifetime license. For one website, it's $99, and for unlimited websites, it's $249. You can use the link to check out Bricks Builder, and once you purchase any of these licenses, you can go to your account, click on Downloads, and click on Download Bricks theme. Once you do that, go back to your WordPress dashboard, log in, go to Appearance, click on Themes, click on Add New, and click on Upload Theme. Now just upload the zip file that you have just downloaded from Bricks. As you can see, I'm actually uploading Bricks to themes. Unlike Elementor, Bricks is a theme, but the builder is included in the theme. So it's a theme and the builder itself. So click on Install Now. And once you install the software, you can go to your account, click on Licenses, copy the license key and paste it when you do so. When you click on Activate, it will ask you for the license key. Just copy and paste the license key from Licenses in your Bricks dashboard, and you can just close this. A quick disclaimer, Bricks team did provide me with a license. I reached out to them. I wanted to make a lot of tutorials because it is a really powerful solution and a good alternative to Elementor. However, I'm not paid to make this tutorial. So with that out of the way, once you install and activate Bricks, you get this screen. So what exactly is Bricks? Well, as you saw, Bricks is a theme and it's also a builder, meaning it can build every part of your website. So if I visit my website right now, it can build the header, it can build the page itself, it can build the footer, it can build your archive design. Basically everything on your WordPress website, Bricks can build it, just similar to Elementor. Now in the WordPress dashboard, you have some quick links to get started. That's what getting started is. Then you have templates, and when you click on them, I already have two templates, one for my header, one for my footer. You can create new templates by clicking on Add New, give it a title, and from on the right hand side, you can choose the type of template. So you can build a header template, footer template, single page template, or single post template that defines the design of your Gutenberg posts or custom post types, pop-ups, archives, and so on. But we'll save this for a later tutorial. So back to Bricks. You can click on Leave Page, click on Settings. We'll get to settings in a bit, but first we'll just quickly change some options and start building our page. So under General Settings, you can see Bricks is enabled for the post type pages. And why is post not enabled? Because you already have Gutenberg to build or write content in posts. Of course, you can do the same for pages as well, but usually these builders are used to build pages and rest of your websites. While posts, you better leave it to Gutenberg. If you want, you can just toggle this on, but I recommend just leaving it at the default. And then you have two options. Just check these two options for now. I'll explain them what they are. And under SVG uploads, you can choose if you want to let people upload SVG files onto your website. We'll just enable that for admin. For other users on your website, you can just uncheck them. Once you have this on, also come down and just toggle this option on. And you can leave everything at the default and click on Save Changes. And you can also limit your builder access based on user roles or types of users. So for editor, you can just give permission to edit content. Anyway, you can leave this at the default. And at any time, if you want to restore all the settings, you can click on Reset Settings and all the default options will be restored. And down here, just leave everything at the default. And I want you to change one important setting. It's autosave for every 60 seconds. Just leave it at the default. And in here, just change this from preview to post type. I'll explain what it is in a bit, but just check this option and also toggle these two on, and everything you can leave at the default and click on Save Changes. Okay, we're good to go. Let's start building our page. Just hover over Pages or click on Pages. click on add new. Once you click on add new, just call it bricks home. Now you can simply click on edit with bricks, and that will take us to the bricks interface. Let's understand the interface first, and then we'll build our page step by step. Now the bricks interface has 3 panels: the side panel, the top bar, and the third panel on the right. Well, on the left, you have all the elements with which you can design the page itself or any template in bricks. And at the top, you have something called states or pseudo classes, things like hover and all that. And there's a link to help or documentation. And you have a link to pages. So when you click on it, it shows that all the pages on your website. You can also click on plus button, and I can simply say new bricks and click on create page, and that will create a new page. So creating a page is that easy. You can hit cancel and that takes you back. Well, from here it asks you to select post types, but it only has pages. Why is that so? Well, that's because in the bricks settings we chose post types only for pages. So we chose to edit only pages with bricks. So let's say I enable posts as well and click on save settings. I'll click on the save draft button and reload this. Now when you go to the pages button, you can choose posts as well. And again, it shows all the posts on your website. And if you want, you can create a new post with bricks as well. But like I said, just do pages with bricks and rest of your website with bricks as well. So that is pages shortcut. So that opens all the pages and you can create new ones and click on that, and that will take you to edit that particular page with bricks. And let's edit the new page, which is our bricks homepage. Just like that, you can navigate between bricks. And what about this bricks logo? When you hover over it, it's saying that go to post types. What is that? Well, I click on that, it takes us to pages. Well, if you remember, under builder, we chose this to post type. Now, by default, it will be preview. And if you pick dashboard from here and click on save changes, every time you exit the bricks interface, let's say I'm editing bricks here and I click on this, that will take you back to WordPress dashboard instead of the post type or post that you're editing. So it's always a good option. Choose the toolbar logo link to the post type. So whatever post type you're editing with bricks, it will take you back there. That's a good setting. So click on save changes. Now back to editing the page. I'll click on the pages again, and you can rearrange the pages by clicking on date. So these are the 2 pages that we created with bricks. Let's edit our home page. I'm calling it bricks home. You can call it anything you want. You can simply give it another title. And right next to pages link, you have history and revisions. You'll understand this once we start building the page itself. And then you have some settings. You have theme styles. And when you click on that, nothing shows up. You have to choose this drop down menu. You can pick any of these. If yours is a new website, you may not see any of this. So you just need to click on the plus button. Give it a name. Let's call it Brick School Styles. You can give it any name you want and click on create. Well, what are theme styles? These are things like your colors, your fonts, and the default styles for all the elements on your bricks pages. So that's what theme styles are. You can click on the settings cog to go back again, and you also have access to page settings. When you're editing a template, you'll have access to template settings. Let's say you're editing header using bricks, you'll have access to header settings. So I clicked on the settings cog, page settings. Under general, you can give CSS classes to the body. Now, if you want to hide the header and footer and just publish the plain page, you can just disable them like so and just publish the page. But it's always a good idea to have them. And you can also change the site layout from full width to boxed. But let's choose that. And you can also choose a background. We'll get back to that later. and you have few other options. And click on one page navigation, choose that, and it will have navigation dots for all your sections. We'll get to that in a bit again. And then you have SEO panel, where you can change permalink, which is essentially the URL of the post. You can also change the title of the post. Let me change it to My Cool Bricks. I can actually click on save new title and permalink, and the page will be reloaded. And now you see that's called My Cool Bricks. Again, click here, click on page settings, and you have few other options to add document title, meta description. We'll discuss this in future tutorials, but these are good for search engine optimization, SEO. I'll click this to minimize this panel, and you also have some other options. So you can choose the title, description, and image that shows up when you're sharing this page on social media. That's what this whole tab is all about. I'll click this, and then you have option to add custom CSS and all that codes. Now on the canvas, these are the basic structural elements that hold all your elements within. We'll discuss about that in a bit. And on the left hand side, you also have your elements. So you can simply click to add that element. And when you click on that element, you get contextual options for that particular element. Again, you can click on this plus button, click and drag another element above or below this. And when you click on it, you get contextual options for that particular element. On the top, you can reload the canvas and see how your design looks on different devices. As of now, this is the width it's showing if I pick desktop. Now you can also minimize these panels. When you hover over this box, click on this arrow, this is gone. Now the width changes here. And you can also minimize this structure panel. When I click on it, it's gone and the width changes here. Speaking of the structure panel, it shows the structure of all the elements on your page. And you can also browse various templates on your website, or you can browse community templates and insert them and just change them. But we'll do everything from the scratch. You can also publish your page by clicking this publish button. You can also edit this page in WordPress by clicking this, or you can preview this page. This is to save a draft or rough copy of the page. I'll bring this left panel back by clicking the arrow, and Bricks of course does autosave for every 60 seconds, but if you just want to save, just click this one. Again, I have these elements. I can go to the structure, click on remove all, click this check mark, and that gets rid of every element on the page. The first thing we need to do is to define theme styles. When you click on it, you may be presented with an option. If you don't have any option, you first need to click on create, give it a name, click on create. And once you create new theme styles, you can also change between theme styles by clicking this drop down. As you can see, I have theme styles defined for this. And when you actually have values for any tabs, it will be shown with this yellow dot. You can click that to remove the value. You can click on add condition. I want these to be applied across all the website. Now we'll not be going into how to pick colors and fonts in this tutorial, maybe another one. But basically you define all your colors, all your branding colors in here, and you do the same for the typography. You define font size, font family in here, and also the color for text. So I just picked a couple of fonts and different weights for H1, H2, H3, H5 and so on. So I've defined font styles and font sizes and even font weights for all of that. Under this theme style, you can also edit your theme style by clicking this button and change any of the options, or you can also create this by clicking this. Now you can just start everything from the scratch. But anyway, I'll click on the drop down, click on this one, and this theme styles option will be applied to my website. So I just have colors and fonts loaded up in the theme style. So that is fun. Let's click on the elements button, get back to the design. Also, speaking of fonts, Bricks Builder uses Google Fonts. Now, if you're worried about GDPR, click on settings, click on performance for Bricks Builder. You can disable Google Fonts. You can download the fonts from Google Fonts website and upload them in custom fonts. That will prevent the GDPR headache for you. But again, For the sake of this tutorial, I'm just using the fonts built in. You can disable these options if you're not using emojis or YouTube embeds in your WordPress website. Click on Save Settings. Now back to the website. I'll be using this page, well, roughly this page, and we'll be building our home page based on this. And for font combinations, you can just do a quick Google search and pick some of the font combinations. And good rule of thumb is to not use more than 2 fonts on a website. One for body text, one for headings. That's how you do it. Anyway, back to the website. Now you have this interface. When you click on it, on the right hand side, if you look closely, it's creating a section and then it's also creating a container within. Now you can also click on the section, go to the plus button and then create a new block like so. You can hover over this and click on block. And all of those are nested within the section. So section is the fundamental structure element. I'll click to delete all of that. You can also click here, and whenever a new section is created, a container is also created by default. Now, section, container, and block are Flexbox elements. They let you rearrange and respace elements using something called CSS Flexbox. You can also pull this container and make it its own box. So I can click and drag it slightly onto the left till I see it's aligned right under the section, leave it, and now it becomes its own box. Let's do the same for a block. I'll click this block, click and drag it. Now it's nested within this container. I can simply click and drag it slightly onto the left. It becomes its own box. If you want to nest this block within this section or container, just move it slightly onto the right. You see that with this yellow outline, which is slightly onto the right. Leave it like that. And when you click on the section, you see the dotted arrow, meaning that this block is now within this section. You can also pull it out by clicking and dragging slightly onto the left, like so. And now the block is independent of the section. You can also do the same with the div. You can click and drag the div. But again, div is an unstyled element, giving you complete design flexibility. Again, what is an unstyled element? Now, I'll click on this block. I'll click on the plus button. Let's add a heading within this block. Now the heading doesn't get added within the block. Again, I can click and drag it slightly below the block and slightly onto the right to put it within the block. I'll also click on the plus button and drag it slightly below the heading. Now, within this block, when I click on it, it shows the dotted arrow for the heading and basic text, meaning both of these elements are in the block. When you click on history, you can see all the operations, and when you click on one of them, it goes to that particular point in time. And when I click this, you can see all the elements are restored. So based on what you do on your page, you can click to restore to any point in time using history. Okay, back to widget elements. So what is the difference between section, container, and a block? Div is totally an unstyled box. So you can think of section, container, and block as boxes called flex boxes. Well, what are flex boxes? They use something called CSS Flexbox that lets you arrange elements within with click of a button. We'll get to that in a bit, but they also have some fundamental differences. So I'll just minimize the side panel, and when you click on the section, I'll also minimize the structure panel. So the first one is the section. This is the block. When you hover over it, it shows the name. This is a container. This is the section again. Well, section takes up the entire space or 100% of the width of the page, whereas the default container width is 1100 pixels. And for block, it takes up 100% of the space or width of the container. That's the main difference between block and container. You can get rid of all of this, and you can also right click on each of this to get contextual options for that. So you can duplicate it, you can delete it, you can copy styles, insert block, and do all that. I'll get rid of this block for now. I'll also get rid of this container, and let's create layout here and click this. So it basically creates a container with 2 columns, and the columns being the blocks, right? These are all blocks, and it creates a container with the blocks. Now let's say I have a block. I just click to add a block. I clicked on this block and picked this layout button and chose this option. It creates multiple blocks or multiple column blocks within a block. This also applies to section. So when I add a section, click on it and choose multiple blocks, it creates multiple blocks within a section. Hope that made sense. There's something called width. So you can click and drag it to adjust the width of any element. It can be a section, it can be a container, it can be a block, or even div. You can click and drag it on either sides to change the width, and the number is being reflected there. You can also hover over it and change the width from percentage. When you click on %, it turns to pixels. Now you're changing the width and adding a width in pixels. But again, adding in pixels is not a good web design practice. So you better click on this and keep it at %. The same applies for height. So you can click and drag to change the height of any element. It can be a section, it can be a block, it can even be a container. All of these controls are the same. So let me just quickly add a block. I'll click and drag it slightly onto the left to make it its own block. Now again, click and drag to adjust the height of the block. All the controls are the same, and this creates multiple blocks within the block. This is the width. Now again, for height, when you hover over it, it's showing us that the height is adjusted in pixels, but when you click on it, it changes to viewport height. So it's basically percentage or the height of available window. This is again a minimum height. As you add more and more elements, the boxes get automatically stretched. So those are the building blocks. You can add padding and margins to any of section, container, block, or div elements by hovering over. When you hover within the box, you get to add padding, and you can click and drag it to adjust its value. And if you hold down Shift, it does that in the increments of 5. Now, if you hold on Option or Alt key, you can do it one by one, and you can adjust the padding value. Padding is the space within the box, and when you hover outside the section, you can click and drag to add a margin, and the next section or anything that you add will be spaced after this margin. So margin is the space around an element, and padding is the space within an element. That's a visual way of doing it, and I really like this. Let's build our first thing. So we need a section that holds 2 blocks at least. I'll click on this plus button. It creates a section with a container. I can right click on this container, and whenever you right click, it gives contextual options for that particular element. Even in here, you can right click and it gives you the same contextual options, but it's better to right click in the structure panel. Now I'll right click on this container and I'll delete this. I want blocks within my container. I can right click on this and click on insert block, or when you hover over this, you can also insert containers or divs. You can also convert this section into a container or a block by hovering over here. You can also save it as a template or a global element. I'll click on this section. I'll right click on insert block. I'll right click and click on insert block. I'll click on the section. By default, blocks are added vertically. So I'll click on horizontal and blocks are added horizontally, right? It's that easy changing the direction. So within the first block, we'll have our heading and a little bit of text and couple of buttons. So let's do that. I'll click on the plus button. I'll click and drag the heading element. Now it's not properly positioned. I'll click and drag it slightly onto the right below the block, and it gets positioned. And when I click on this section, you can see the dotted arrows indicating these elements are within the section. When I click on the block, only this heading is under the dotted border, meaning only this heading is in the block. I'll click on the plus button. Let's also add basic text. We'll change all of that. We'll add padding and all that. Don't worry. And also notice as I'm adding elements. So let's say I'll right click and duplicate this. You can see this particular block is automatically resized vertically, whereas this block remains the same. So these are flexible boxes or flex boxes that change their shapes according to the content being added, and the same applies for width. But again, we limited the width to 50% because it has 2 blocks. Each of them gets equal spacing. That's why it's limited to this width. So Using these techniques, we just position our elements and have that little space around the elements. I'll delete this one and I'll click on this block. I'll click on the plus button and let's add a button into the block. I'll add one more button. When you have the block selected and click on the button, all those are added within this. Now I'll click on this button and I want these two buttons side by side, right? So we'll do one thing. I'll right click on this button. We'll click on wrap block. That adds a block and puts the button within the block. We'll also click on this button and put it within the block. Now we'll change the direction of the block again to horizontal. Now when I click on the button and when I want to change, let's say the background, or basically whenever you want to pick a color, and when you click on it, you can see that I now have some of my branding colors and colors I want to use instead of the default colors. Now if you come down here, you can click here and this will be the default palette that will be available to you. Although we defined our global theme styles for colors, you still have to reload your panel. You can edit any of the modifying palettes. So let's say you just want to add your global colors to the default palette that is available in here or whichever palette. You can just paste the hex code of the color, or you can pick the color like so and just click on save and that color gets added. Now if you want to edit the default color palette, you can click on this list button, hover over the color that doesn't suit your theme and click delete and delete those colors. But easier way is to actually create a palette with all your colors. So you can click on this plus button, give this palette a name. You can call it branding colors, whatever you want. Click on create. And once you create the palette, click on the drop down and pick the palette. Now start pasting the hex code into this or just pick the colors manually. Once you choose the color, click on save. So that's our first color. And for second color, just pick the color or paste the hex code like we did in global colors and just click on save. So all your colors will be saved in this panel. And next time you want to use colors, you can just use these colors. I did the same for my branding colors. I just created a palette called Karthik's palette with my primary colors and some shades of text colors and background colors. So again, I'll pick this one, which is my branding color. And for the text, I'll click on typography, click on color. I think this color suits better. So this button now looks good. I'll right click on this button. I'll click on copy styles. I'll right click on this button and click on paste styles. And all the styles that you do to this button are applied to this button. Cool thing. Let's also change the heading. I'll click on content. I'll put some dummy text in here. I can click on the button and change the content. You can say contact us or whatever this button is. And you can choose the link type. You can choose it to an internal post or a page, and you can select internal post. You can select the contact page. If you created that page, I'll click here. I'll change this text to learn more. Again, you can also paste in a URL like so, or you can just select internal paste or post. I'll just link it to a dummy page for now. You can also paste the URL. You can also circle the button by clicking the circle button. Again, you can right click, copy styles, right click on this button and paste styles. So yeah, just like that, we change the button shape by clicking this one. You can also add an outline to the button. You can also click on this one and add an outline. Again, pick a color for the outline from the style tab. Anyway, so this is looking good, but we need a little bit of spacing between the elements. And in this block, I'll click on the plus button again. In the mockup design, they have an image or a vector. So we'll add that. First, we need the image element within this block. So I'll click on this block, click on the plus button. Now you can simply click image element to add it into the block that's selected, or you can click and drag it into the block. Now it's not positioned within the block. Again, click and drag it slightly. Yeah, now it goes into the block. I'll click on the section, go to style, click on layout, and I'll link all these values, all sides linked. Let's add a padding of 5%. or let's actually change it to 15%. I think it's way too much. 5% is better. You can also add a minimum height of 500 pixels or something, or of course you can just change the value from here. So you can say 500 pixels, even that is applied in here. Yeah, I think this is looking good. Let's add a vector image. You can go to website called freepik.com and you can search for work illustration. I'll close this, and I think this one suits our website better. And when you're downloading images from Freepik, you have to attribute them either in the caption or anywhere on your website. You have to make sure that you're downloading it from Freepik and they give you a pop-up. But you can also use Envato Elements for illustrations. It's a paid subscription, but you pay for everything, including stock videos, templates, and everything. So you can search for work illustration. You get tons of vectors. You can simply click here and you can just pick the vector that suits you. Maybe if this one, you can just click and add it to your website project like so, and click and download. You can use this vector. So once you download that, we need to upload the image in here. So I'll click on the image element, click on content, click on select, click on upload files, and we actually have to extract those images first. So I'll unzip this file, and this is in JPEG format. Well, you can use any of the vector softwares to just have SVG format of the illustrations, which is better in terms of web performance. So I'll open up Adobe Illustrator. I can also click on file and click on export as from the vector that we've downloaded. I'll call it work. I'll save it on my desktop, and under format, just choose SVG, click export, click OK. And now the file will be available on desktop. You can actually remove this, click on select file, upload files. Let's browse our desktop, and yeah, this is the file. Give it a meaning alt title that screen readers can read. Click on insert, and just like that, our vector is inserted. I'll click on this, go to style, and I'll add a bottom margin of 48 pixels. I think 48 is too much, maybe 24 pixels will do, or even 16 pixels is fine. Anything in multiples of 8. I'll do the same for this, 16 pixels. Now all the values are unlinked, so only this value is affected. And these two already look good, but again, I'll click on this button. Let's add a right margin of 8 pixels. I think 8 pixels is more than enough, or you can also change it to 16 pixels. So the buttons are aligned like so. I think the first section is looking good now, roughly what we're looking for. And we can add a background, or we can just leave it at the default. So I'll click on the section. Let's go to background, click on style. I'll minimize the layout panel. And if you want to reset a panel's values, just hover over this and click on this X button. That will remove all the values from this particular element. But again, I'll click on this, click on this. Now my default or my branding palette is selected. You can select any of the palettes and give it any of the values you want. But I think I'll just go with my palette that I created. I think this one looks better, so I'll just settle with that. Now let's add another block. And to add a block, you can click on section, hover over the plus button and click on block. That adds a block within the section. Click and drag it slightly onto the left. That becomes its own section. Now within this block, they have 3 icon boxes. How do I know? Well, it comes with practice, but you can search for the elements that have an icon, text, and some other text, basically. So if you click on elements and scroll all the way down, you can play with different elements and see which element suits this design. It's basically an icon box. You can clearly tell that because it has an icon and couple of text elements. So that's icon box. Instead of just going there, I can simply search for icon box, click and drag it. Now again, it's not positioned into this block. I'll click and drag it slightly onto the right of this block, and voila, got it. I'll right click on this block, duplicate it, right click on this block, duplicate it. and we'll click on this block and we'll actually click on content tab. Now under display you can also select grid, but I'll explain grid in a future tutorial. For now just leave the display property at the default and click on horizontal so all the icon boxes are positioned. Now we need a minimum height for our icon box and we'll also add a bit of padding. We'll click on the section element, we'll also add a bit of padding to that. I think we already added 5% padding, so we'll do the same for this block. Click on this, I'll link all the values and let's give 5% padding, or it can be 15% padding, totally up to you. But again, if it's in the multiples of 8, it's good. So let's do 16 here and let's do 8% here, or let's do 24% here. I think that looks good. So we can click on the icon box. Let's change the icons. I'll click on the icon, pick the icons. You have ton of icon packs to pick from, or you can upload your own by clicking on SVG. But for now, we'll just pick some of the icons available. And above the icon box, they don't have anything else. Yeah, so that's fine. Maybe I can just hold down Shift and remove all this padding. I can click on the block, actually, go to style, click on layout, and we can actually use negative margins to slightly push these boxes into this border. So for the top, I'll use minus 50 pixels. I think minus 8 pixels is totally fine. So I've added a negative margin just to make these icons enter the border of the above section. And rest all, we can have it at the default. Let's click on the icon box. I'll go to the background. I'll give it a meaningful background. Totally up to you, depending on the design. So we are done with the first section. The second section, I'm not going to change the text in this. Again, this is just for demonstration. Click and drag it slightly. Now it becomes its own section or thing. We have an icon, heading, and a list. Again, this can be done with icon box. And on the right, we have another illustration. So that's what we'll do. So within this block, I can click on this block to highlight it, hover over the columns, click on columns. So it's a 2-column layout basically. And within the first column, we're going to have an icon box element, and scroll down till you see icon box, click and drag it. That's positioned in here. In here, we need an image element, or we can simply right click on this, copy, right click inside this and paste. Of course, we'll change the element image itself. But again, we get the thing. I'll change the icon. Let's mimic this actually. So it's get peace of mind, something like that. Something like that. It doesn't matter. And this can be a list. I can go to icon box, minimize this, click on that. So that is a heading. Let's do bulleted list now. Now I'm typing inside the content area. Fast and responsive, world-class support. Something like that. I'm just typing some random stuff here. I think what we have here is like a regular text. It can be a H6 or something. And then we'll highlight a link. Now I can simply select this, click on paragraph and make it H4 or something. Or maybe H5 is also fine, totally fine. So yeah, now we have the content. You can also minimize this sidebar by hovering over this and dragging this over. I think, yeah. Now let's add a bit of padding into this block. Click on the block, go to style, and under layout, I'll link all these values. Maybe 5% of padding is totally fine. And you can also align these two blocks in the main block. See that? You can align across in the horizontal axis or cross axis. You can also align elements in the main axis, but I think the elements already fit the width. So again, let's change this vector to something else. I'll download one more vector from FreePic because it's easy. I'll just use this vector. Okay, this is a premium image. Again, FreePic is really an amazing illustration website. So you can simply download this. I'll use this vector for the time being. Again, I'll open this up. Again, it's in a vector format. We need it in Adobe Illustrator format or SVG format. Export, click on export as work 2. I'll select desktop, export, and let me just pick the file. So this is the second SVG file. I'll upload it. Click insert. Voila. We have another vector here. And after that, we have an icon, then text, and we have some other paragraph. Again, you can use another icon box element for this. Create another block. So that's how you start designing your page element by element, and you pick these options. If you want to have a different color for this button, click on it. Go to background, click on this, pick a darker color, totally up to you, and you add a relevant link into that. So white space is really important. It can be margin between this element. So add margins in the multiples of 8. So 16 pixel margin, you see how it gives breathing space. And also for this, I just removed the background because it blends well. You can also change the icon box's background from here, 16 pixels. So that pulls these elements even more towards this design. Totally up to you how you want to design. And of course, change these values. And again, have this element. Let's also add a new element. Let's actually click on outermost block and click on block. That inserts a block within this. Again, I'll use the structure panel to click and drag it out. That creates a block here. So for the next section, we have an icon box element here, 3 icon boxes and a button. So these 3 icon boxes can go into a block element, and all of this whole structure can be in one block. So we just need 2 blocks. Anyway, I created 1 block already. Let's start dragging the icon box element first. So I think we can actually copy one of this. I think this was the icon box element. Copy, we'll change the text or whatever. I'll click on the block, right click, and I'll click on paste. I'll click on the block. Let's also add a bit of padding of maybe 64 pixels all around, or maybe let's change that to 5%. Now don't worry, we'll align everything onto the center. I'll click on the block, go to content. Let's also give a minimum height. Now we need an inner block. We can actually copy and paste one of these icon blocks. I'll right click on this. I'll copy the icon box from here and I'll click on the block. I'll right click and paste it. We'll change it to our liking. But again, I'll click on the icon block, right click on it and click wrap block. So that creates a block and puts this icon box into the block. I'll click on the icon block, duplicate it twice. We can change obviously the alignment to that, and we'll add all the spacing and stuff like that. Let's also click on the outermost block and let's align it onto the center like so. Let's also click on this block and go to the content tab. Let's also add a column gap of 48 pixels. Totally up to you. Now we need space between this icon block and these elements. I'll click on the icon box, go to style, and maybe 48 pixels margin or something like that. Of course, we'll change this to whatever we like. Let's unlink the value and give a margin bottom of 48 pixels. I'll just link all these values. Yeah, I think that looks better now. So we have the first option, the second option. Let's also add a button. Click here. Just want this button below this block. I'll click and drag it slightly onto the left. Again, I'll click on this icon or the outermost block that holds all these icon boxes. Let's also give a margin bottom of 48 pixels. You can also do 64. Now we totally have this. Of course, change this icon to whatever icon you want or upload your own custom icon. Click on the button. You can change the icon or give an icon to the button. Let's link it to our homepage or Bricks homepage in this case. So something like that. Go to styles, click on typography, And let me change the button color. I think now that looks better. And in the content, I can pick a circle, so the pill-shaped buttons. So this is initially how our design looks on desktop. Let's verify how it looks on tablet. On tablet, it looks great as well. Maybe on mobile, we need to adjust few things. Let's change the max width to 400 pixels or something. Add a little bit of margin under this one. So 48 pixel margin. And I'll click on this. Let's change this to 24 pixel margin. I think everything else looks better. Now click on this icon box. Click on this block. Go to the content tab. We define column block because there were columns in desktop view, but we need to define row gap. Maybe 24 pixels is fine. Totally up to you. You can also add a bit of margin into the block containing all these icon boxes. For this, we'll just remove the negative margin and we'll do 2% margin. Yeah, I think that looks better now. Again, change the width. Let's change the maximum width to 400 pixels. Again, keep adding all the margins. I think 48 pixels is totally fine. You can apply similar properties to this on. So this is the block. We have to go to the content tab, add a row gap of 24 pixels or 48 pixels, whatever you like. Because the columns become rows in mobile. So yeah, something like that. And now everything else is looking good. Similarly, you need to adjust it on mobile. Of course, this is dummy content, but you get the deal, right? So this is how we started on desktop. And this is how our design looks on desktop. This is how on tablet. Don't worry, we'll discuss about them in detail in future tutorials. And we'll also discuss the display grid property in a future tutorial. But that's a brief introduction to Bricks Builder. And once you're done editing the page, you hit this button to publish the page and the page is now live. Also go to your WordPress settings, click on reading, and let's make our Bricks homepage the homepage. So I'll change the homepage to Bricks home. Make sure this option is selected and post is blog page. We'll again discuss all the blog pages, home pages and everything later. Click on save changes. Now when you visit the website, you should see your design in action. So it's something like that. Easy peasy, right? So that's a brief introduction to Bricks. Let me know what you guys think and I'll see you in more Bricks tutorials. Subscribe to Design School. Keep checking Bricks Builder playlist on the channel for more info. Ciao.